Okay, so this is a little bit of kind of just a story about the background of the project, like where it started, where we've got to, and where we're going next. So all in all, it was kind of starting in a place of designing for period poverty. So just kind of a brief background as to who we are, as slightly introduced already. So myself, Olivia, and this is my colleague and friend, Rachel. So the two of us, originally this started as a college project, so in DID, now TU Dublin. And it was in an ethical and sustainable design module. And so it started as a team of 4 working on this, and kind of as we progressed it out, kind of finishing the module, we took it then to the Where There Is No Engineers competition. So that's kind of a bit of a timeline. So that started working on this in September of 2017, won the Where There Is No Engineers competition in 2018, and then just June of last year we ended up going out to Nepal. So just to give you kind of a high-level view about like what it is when I say menstrual toolkit, and then I'll kind of jump into the whole story about how we came up with the idea and how it kind of progressed. So the toolkit is made up of 4 reusable sanitary pads. It comes with a washing device, a set of underwear, and infographic instructions. So the idea is that anyone in the world can pick it up and use it. But I guess the idea was it's not just about the kind of product itself. The product is a touch point and like basically a holistic support service. So you don't want to just give things to people and have them use, like pick it up and take it away. You want to actually empower them and enable them to make it themselves, use it, and so on and so forth. So just like that's what it looks like, just because I think sometimes it's easier if people have an idea in their heads of kind of what I'm talking about as I go through it. You might be able to follow along a little bit better. But yeah, so just to jump in from the beginning. So, we'll move that. So yeah, it started as a college project, and in that it was kind of originally focusing on refugees, so just designing for refugees in general, quite a broad topic. And so we started looking at like kind of sanitation and menstrual health, and we kind of quickly realised, yes, it is a problem specifically with refugees, but also actually just massively across the whole world, that there's issues with period poverty, even here in Dublin. So just to kind of talk you through some of the research that came out of that kind of initial secondary research we did, which is really quite shocking. So obviously over half the displaced population are women, and they're suffering both physically and mentally, because like not having a tampon or a pad, yes, that is really distressing for my physical needs, but it's also really distressing for my mental needs, not being able to kind of take control of a situation and look after yourself. On any given day, over 800 million women have their period. So just to kind of give you like, yes, the scale of the problem, it is an issue. It affects 50% of the population. But also that girls and women are dying from a lack of resource, knowledge, and even awareness about menstruation. So like it's not just about actually having the access to the things, but kind of understanding and having the education behind it as well. And also globally, 1.25 billion women do not have access to sanitary products. So they end up using things like cloth, leaves, rags, and we even heard some cases of tin cans. So that just kind of give you a bit of like an understanding of the size of the problem and the background of it. So when we started with this project, we weren't really sure where to start. So we jumped in with material testing, and like what we were trying to do with that is kind of understand what materials could people have access to that would actually help them in this situation. Because like, as I mentioned, people are kind of just using whatever is readily available. And so from that, we literally used a disposable sanitary towel as a kind of control, because in most people's optimal situation, that is what they would have access to. And from that, I'll just talk you through the kind of main insights we got from this. So the first thing we realised is like there's no one material that's going to benefit, like that's going to fulfil all the needs of a sanitary product, because you need different properties like leak-proof, absorbency, feeling dry against your skin, all those kind of things. So we realised actually you can't just pick up one piece of material and make something with it. And as I mentioned, the disposable pads, which we were using as like a control test, they actually have adhesives on the back of them, and that's how they fasten into women's underwear. And so the problem is with that, you use it once, you use it twice, and the adhesion's gone. So you can't actually use things like glues or stickers if you're going to make something that's reusable, because over time that's going to wear away. And also, originally when we started this, we were looking at like refugees, and we were saying, okay, where is there a large population of refugees or migrants moving to? But then we kind of realised, again, like I said, this is a bigger issue. So we were kind of thinking you can't just pick one material like this specific cotton or like a polyurethane laminate, because the thing is it has to be readily accessible. So we're then trying to realise actually what, as opposed to specific materials, what are the general kind of properties a material needs to have so that anyone anywhere in the world can pick it up and use it. So then we jumped into doing a task analysis. So this is just kind of a research method for us, because we didn't have access to kind of maybe people in period poverty, or people kind of refugees, or people living displaced out of their home. We kind of tried to break down, like, say, one task and really understand what it is a person's trying to achieve in that, and where there might be pain points, or where they might kind of have issues, or in this case where there might be kind of contamination. So what we did was we focused on women trying to enter a bathroom, change a sanitary pad and come away. And so we broke the task down into kind of small actions, what you'd have to handle, what you'd be focusing on, and what kind of the risks are when you're doing that. We took it from a perspective of a refugee who would be in, say, a refugee settlement to try and get to use a bathroom there. And so one of the things we knew was a big issue was a risk of contamination, illness, but also sexual gender-based violence. So in refugee settlements, and sometimes just in public bathrooms, there is a higher risk of violence, or just being subjected to kind of attacks or advances that you not necessarily want. So we realised as well, you don't want someone having to go in, be very obvious with kind of sanitary products, and then having to spend a long time in there. People, refugees specifically, want to be in and out as quickly as they can. There's also a fear of being heard and a fear of being seen. Like, I think something that we could relate to in doing this project was, like, it's a taboo topic in Ireland. Like, I don't want to take a tampon out and wave it around the office and walk into the toilet, so why would someone in any other circumstance want to do that? And so it's just kind of like, these are just all things that, considerations we wanted to take into account as we were, like, designing for these things, because it's, yes, you can design something in isolation, that's really, really amazing, but then when it comes, like, hits the context that it's going to be used in, you have to consider all the other impacts that it's going to have. So we were really fortunate then, once we got a few prototypes up and running, to actually meet different women's groups. So we were lucky to meet some women out of Mosney, the Direct Provision Centre, and we were also lucky to meet with this lovely group of women who were part of Akidwa, who are a young migrants women's support group. And I think this was really, really valuable for us, because up until this point we were, like, designing based on assumptions, and we definitely got some really valuable insights from this. It helped us frame challenges, I guess, which, like, constraints that we needed to address with this. One of the biggest ones being that these women just kind of, it was an open discussion, and they just were very helpful in telling us there are certain things based on my beliefs and my culture and, like, the people I live with that kind of dictate what I can and can't do during my period. And so, like, that stuff, no matter how much I tell you, oh, well, that's, like, you know, don't worry about that. Like, they will worry about that, and it's something we have to take into consideration. So one of which was like touching blood. For a lot of people's cultural beliefs, you can't actually put your hands on any blood. So they're saying, you know, you have to be careful that you can contain it. And as well, it's a big thing for not only me seeing blood, but other people seeing blood. So having to be able to package something so that it's kind of discreet and concealed was a really big priority for them. And also what was really interesting, because we were kind of considering at this stage, like, oh, moon cups or diva cups, those have become very popular as a sustainable alternative here in, like, Ireland and England, and kind of across Europe. And they were saying to us, actually, we don't use any internal products. Like, it wouldn't be something they'd be comfortable using. So then that was kind of a big indicator for us. If this is going to be it's not going to be everyone's ideal solution, but it's going to be a solution that works for everyone, that we couldn't actually do things like internal products like moon cups or tampons, because it's already, you're starting to cut out the number of people who feel comfortable using that. And then what was really helpful as well was we kind of realised that women may have received little to no education about menstruation. So any practices they have around their period is probably what maybe someone told them, or what they've kind of picked up themselves. And so that was something we thought as well. Like, you can't just hand this to somebody and say, here, great, we've given you a solution, because, you know, they don't actually, it's not what they're used to, it's not what they're comfortable with. Why should they do this? And the last one as well was creating an environment where women can feel safe to learn about and discuss menstruation. So what was really interesting for us is, like, I think this is the point of the project where we kind of learned to just get out of our own way, because a big thing with us was like, oh, we don't want to ask people about their periods, they're not going to tell us, that's so embarrassing, oh my god, we shouldn't talk about it. And so, like, when we sat down with these women, we were really like, oh no, you don't have to say anything, But what was so interesting was, like, this space with just us, and we just said, like, oh, we just want to know what you think, like, straight in, open conversation, really nice. It was kind of like almost giving permission to ourselves, like to us and to them, to say, like, yes, we can talk about this. And yeah, it was really lovely because people just opened right up, and it was like a sharing of experience and stuff. And so this really was the point when the project took like kind of a 180, because originally we were just looking at the sanitary pad itself, and then they kind of said to us, oh, this is great and all, but how do I wash it? Like, I don't want to go out into, say, like a settlement or an open community or public toilet and be rinsing out a pad that I've just used. So this is kind of where we took the step back and said, yeah, this can't just be one product. This needs to be like a holistic solution. And like there's other aspects of menstruation that we want to support women in, partially being education and also just feeling like you can talk about it. So to actually jump into what we did design in the end based on this user feedback, this is kind of a blown out version of what the pad itself looks like. And so the idea is that the women will get raw materials themselves, be able to cut shapes like this out and sew their own pads. But basically just the kind of design breakdown of it is there's 3 layers. You can add more or less depending on preference. The top layer is a dry layer. So that's kind of just any knitted fabric we figured works for this. And it's basically, because of the way that it's knitted, it allows liquid to like pass through quickly, but feel really dry against the skin. So that's the top layer. The second layer then is the absorbency layer. So this is kind of where all the liquid can gather and absorb, and you can add as many layers in there as you want. Some women might have a heavier flow, so then you can add more depending on your day, things like that. And then the bottom layer is the leak-proof layer, but also actually acts as like a package and a cover. So when it's all sewn together, you can fold it up so that the part that sits against your skin isn't actually exposed, which I will show you here. So how the actual use of the product works. So as I mentioned, like the design considerations that we kind of brought into this from all of our user feedback was touch no blood. So in this, there's specific parts where your hands go, and you don't actually have to touch the part that touches your skin. It's self-packages, so it closes up itself. It's not an internal product, and there's a way to wash it. So that kind of ticked all the boxes that we realised this is what we need for everyone to be able to use it. And so how it works is it comes actually self-contained, and then you take out one of the pads which is closed. So that's the leak-proof layer on the outside. When you open it, you just have to turn the top half inside out, and then that fits into the gusset. So a gusset, for those who don't know, is a part of the women's underwear. So just on the bottom there's an extra layer of fabric which literally just built in for safety. But this basically slides underneath that and then self-fastens itself in. So there's no adhesives, there's no clips, there's no glues, anything like that. And then when you're done, there's just a tab on the top that you can pull the pad back out, close it up. And what was really nice when we were speaking to the refugee women, they said to us, oh, do you know what would be really helpful? It's like a way to carry this to the toilet because I don't want people to see it. So then what we started doing was actually sewing pockets into the front of women's underwear so that you can go to the toilet with a clean one, switch it out and carry it back, and no one has to know what you're doing. And then, as the women said, like there's no way of washing it, so why would we use this? We designed a washing device. So it's a shame I don't have any with me, sorry, actually, I've given them all away, so I need to make more, but it looks a bit like a water bottle. And so the top opening is just like a lid, you put water in, there's a cage in the middle, which is that kind of white part, and that's the bottle opens in half, and you put in used sanitary pads or underwear, close it up, and then when you put the water in, you literally just shake, and the idea is that the cage holds the kind of used cloth still, and the water can flow through it, kind of almost like a handheld washing machine. And then rinse and repeat however many times you need. So that's just kind of the bottom one there, that's how that works. But like I said, this is just one product, and we kind of realised you can't just hand things out to people and expect them to use it or feel empowered or want to use it. So we kind of thought, how would you implement this, and how would it actually be really like valued and used in a community? So the plan was to like find a location. So, and in that location, source the materials locally. So like go and see what is available, what can we use, what would be suitable. And set up these kind of designated safe spaces within, it says here refugee settlements, but we realised expanded that out just in communities. Like a lot of communities already have these existing spaces. And so it was just a matter of kind of being introduced to them. And then, yeah, so when you have the women in these spaces, what it would be is just like a receiving of like the raw materials. So of the different, like a sewing kit and say the different fabrics that you have to use. And then the idea is that women would sew them themselves to their specifications, what they wanted out of it. And I guess the idea is to build a community then. So in this, you're creating that safe space, just like when we spoke with the young migrant women. You're kind of opening the floor and giving permission to talk, like people to talk about this stuff. And then like the great thing is at the end of it, they have something that they can use themselves. So that was the plan. That was what we kind of had shaped up, and we entered the Where There Is No Engineer competition. And the year that we entered it was focusing on designing for community resilience. So like I think a big thing that we had with this was that we didn't want it to just be for women. We wanted it to be something that actually, like if you wanted to make a small business out of it where you worked, that men could get involved, and that like it becomes less of this really private and embarrassing and secretive topic and more about this thing of like, yep, it happens, let's all get involved. And so we were very lucky that we actually did win, and we got a chance to kind of develop this further. So with the help of Engineers Without Borders and Action Aid, we actually got to take this out and implement it. So we did an action research trip, and that was really, really special. So I'm going to just talk you through that very quickly. These are all just pictures because I haven't actually formatted them into a bit more of a narrative. So if you have any questions about them, just do let me know. So went out to Nepal. This is just to give you an example of the kind of conditions we were working in. We ended up doing 6 different women's sessions, so 6 different groups of women, ranging from like women with their daughters, young girls themselves, kind of teenagers, and then like older women. We literally had a mix of kind of whoever was around, which was really great. And yeah, so the kind of structure we took, what was really, really helpful, and I think definitely kind of helped us embed the project a bit better, was working with Action Aid Nepal. They have a really, really great structure. So we arrived into Kathmandu and met Nisha, who is kind of the national representative for Action Aid. We then travelled out to Chitwan, which is kind of a more rural area. There's still a city there. And we met Sajina, who's like the regional representative. And then we kind of travelled out each day from Chitwan, like 2-3 hours, sometimes 4 hours, into the kind of more rural parts where you have communities who are really living in isolation and don't have access to, say, disposable sanitary pads, things like that. And what was great was when we did these women's sessions that there was actual social mobilisers. So they're people that work for Nepal who are trusted members of community who go to, let's say, the Action Aid headquarters, find out the kind of projects they're working on, and they bring them back and they introduce them to the community. So what was really helpful was like in our introductions, we were coming in with people who were already kind of valued in the community and were known to kind of bring about really useful and positive change. So what was lovely was like in the introductions, we got kind of, you know, blessings and sometimes gifts, and it was really lovely and very warm and accepting. If you've ever been to Nepal, you would know that they are absolutely lovely people. But I think what was really useful was the kind of way we went about doing this. So we opened up or started each session with like problem sharing. So instead of diving in and saying, oh, look at us, how great we are, look what we've done, we kind of just did the same that we did with the user testing groups that we had. And we just said like what do you experience? What do you feel about it? And like it was always like there was different receptions to that. Like in this case, she just jumped straight in, that woman, and she was just talking, and then everyone was kind of agreeing with her, and she really broke the tension, and all of a sudden the whole like group was talking. Whereas with some of the younger girls, maybe they didn't talk as much, or else they were all talking. And so like it was different. Like each time you kind of just had to adapt to the reaction you were getting from people, and you'd have to know like when to push and when to take a step back. So then we gave them like a really quick kind of explanation, just like this is what we've done, this is what we think. But I think what was really useful is like we never considered this, like the toolkit or the kind of holistic service, as ours. Like our goal is to kind of be redundant or to, you know, hand it over to other people or it be self-sufficient. So we kind of just came with the bare bones, and we're like, these are the ones that we've tried, this is what the way we've done it, this is how we've sewed. And then we actually just kind of got straight into them doing it themselves. And in Nepal, they are unbelievable at sewing. But I think it just maybe had never occurred to them that we could be sewing things that we could be using during our period, because like when we did it, they were out sewing us completely, and they were finding better ways to do it. And I think that was something that we really like. It was really nice to see, because it was something we had hoped that it would be like a sharing of power and kind of sharing like an exchange of knowledge. And actually they did just take it and run with it, which is kind of what we had hoped. And yeah, so what was really good as well is like, obviously language barrier is going to be an issue, and we were kind of worried about that as well, especially with the topic where you're kind of like, oh, it's already a bit sensitive, we're not sure what's going to happen. But I think actually like learning by doing really broke down a lot of the kind of barriers that came with language, because it wasn't so much about me saying, this is how you do it. It was me saying, yeah, that looks great, like, oh, or like, this is the one I did. And yeah, it was just kind of, it made it a lot more fun and stuff, I guess. So this is kind of the outcome of some of the women's sessions that we did, which, believe me, for a group of like remote Nepalese women to be holding underwear out in the open for people to see was really like, some of them were waving them around like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And like, it seemed silly, but it was really, felt quite liberating for us and for them, which was really, really nice. And I think just like my top 3 takeaways from like reflecting on the trip was the first one. So we came with like rough and ready prototypes. We came with our idea of what we thought would work. The washing devices were actually 3D printed, and we had 12 of them. So we gave 2 to each women's group, and we were kind of a bit like, this isn't great. Like we wanted something better, but this is as far as we've gotten it. And what was really lovely to see was like their reception of it. And they started saying, oh, well, like the cage inside, we have old rice cookers that we like save just in case we need them. But yeah, we can use that as that. And oh, actually we have like animal medicine bottles that if you just disinfect, we can use that as the outside. And yeah, and they started like cutting them up and making their own. So like what was really interesting is we did 6 sessions. So now we have 6 communities taking one kind of framework of our project in 6 different directions. So it'll be really interesting to see like actually how much they adapted to their own personal community needs and how much is actually something that everyone can learn from. The second picture is one of the men from the community getting involved, which is, I think, for us a really good indicator of how successful this has been, because something we were aware of in Nepal, especially kind of in the more remote communities, is that a lot of what maybe happens in a community is dictated by the men or by the man of the household. So we were worried, like, is this going to be disruptive? Are we actually going to be doing more harm than we are going to help? But then to see people like getting interested and saying, like, one man was like, oh, I'm going to take this home for my wife. And I was like, great, you know, bring her along next time. Like, have a chat about it, whatever. And I think it kind of, yeah, it was really nice to see. And lastly, this is Nisha. So this is the woman that was, she works in Kathmandu and as like part of the head office of Action Aid Nepal. And she even said like, oh, I'm going to make some of these for myself. So like it was just nice to see, because like myself and Rachel have used them, and we've got friends here in Dublin using them and testing them and stuff. But it was just like, when you're designing for something that you're saying like, oh, this is for someone who's like maybe in poverty or somebody who's in like a less than ideal situation, yes, you're hoping that they use it. But the fact that people who like just want to use it because they think it's good, like that's kind of really positive as well, because when you design for one person, you're hoping that you're designing for everyone. So that was really a nice outlook. But then I guess kind of reflections now 9 months on from this trip. There's some things I think like moving forward we should be taking into consideration and like just be a little bit more aware of. And one of those is like measures of success. So I think it was mentioned earlier that like Nepalese people do just really want to please you, and they do say, yeah, like it's great a lot. And I think with this project we kind of got a little bit more into like the nitty-gritty truthful side of things, because it felt like people were being very personal and very open. So that was good, but like how do you continue that on? How do we know that it's actually working? And like, as Dan mentioned earlier, how do you keep an open feedback loop? So, I mean, I'm in contact with Nisha, who's the head of like Action Aid Nepal, and with Sajina, who's the kind of regional representative. But I don't have access to the social mobilizers, and I don't have access to the communities that we went into. So how do we make sure that what they're saying is being heard and is being taken back and is being developed? So that's just things that we kind of need to maybe keep in mind. And also planning for future collaborations, like keeping that in mind and kind of thinking, it doesn't have to always come back to me, but making sure that there is someone kind of listening and iterating and improving. Yeah, so that's the story up until now. And what next is just to continue to grow. I think Action Aid Nepal has been really pleased with the success of this. Like from what I've heard, women are still using it, and they've not only started using it themselves, but expanding it little bits in communities. I haven't actually got a full detailed feedback yet, which I'm hoping to get this week, because Nisha's gone back out to Chitwan. But yeah, hoping to keep growing, that's the plan. So I will say, we just made an Instagram account because I can't make a website. So I still work full time. So this is like my side project that keeps my faith in humanity alive. But if you get a chance to follow TIDE Toolkit on Instagram, we're going to basically be just documenting this whole story again up there and keeping the progress alive. But yeah, any questions?